Welcome back, detective. You've found your quiet corner of the night, where the sound of rain becomes memory, and every story hides a face behind the fog. Tonight, we turn our gaze toward a list that has watched the decades go by. 10 names the world has not yet found. 10 lives the FBI still calls most wanted. Since 1950, the list has been more than a bulletin board of fugitives. It's a mirror reflecting what society fears, what it values, and how even in a world filled with cameras and databases, people can still disappear. To make this list is not to be famous. It is to be missing in plain sight. Each face you'll hear tonight belongs to someone who slipped between borders, between lives, and into the collective imagination of those who search. We won't linger on violence. We'll linger on mystery, on the strange, quiet question of how a person can vanish, and how the world remembers them only through the spaces they left behind. The year is 2025. The list has changed again. New faces, new stories, and the same quiet urgency beneath them all. Let's begin. The FBI's 10 most wanted list isn't just a wall of names. It's a living document, updated, erased, rewritten, a reflection of what humanity still chases and what it's still running from. These are not just fugitives. They're the unanswered questions in the archive of justice. Let's begin. 1. Rafael Caro Quintero. They call him the narco of narcos. Once one of Mexico's most powerful traffickers, Rafael Caro Quintero co-founded the Guadalajara cartel in the early 1980s. He's wanted for the 1985 kidnapping and murder of DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena, a case that changed how the United States fights international drug crime. Caro Quintero was captured in 1985, sentenced, and then released on a legal technicality in 2013. Within days, he disappeared into the Sierra Madre Mountains of northern Mexico. The FBI believes he still hides there. A man in his 70s now, protected by loyalty, fear, and time. A $20 million reward still waits, not just for justice, but for closure. Decades later, the story remains unfinished, a name that time refuses to erase. 2. Alejandro Rosales Castillo. He was just 18 when he met Truquan Sandy Lyle, a co-worker at a Charlotte, North Carolina restaurant. The two dated briefly before drifting apart, but on a summer night in 2016, something went wrong. Sandy was found dead inside her car near a lake outside Charlotte. Alejandro withdrew cash from her account and fled across the border into Mexico, traveling with his sister and her boyfriend. Only they returned. The FBI believes Castillo is hiding in the Mexican states of Aguascalientes or Guanajuato. He may work small jobs, blend into the rhythm of ordinary life, and check his surroundings before every sunrise. He's been gone for nearly a decade now, still young enough to start over, still wanted enough that he never can. 3. Yulan Adonai Arcaga Carillas. To the FBI, he's Porky. To the streets of Honduras, he's known as a ghost of the MS-13 organization. Yulan Adonai Arcaga Carillas is accused of coordinating drug shipments, ordering killings, and building networks that stretch from Central America to the ports of the southern United States. He's believed to move constantly, protected by armed guards, rarely seen twice in the same place. Interpol notices list him across multiple countries. The last confirmed sighting placed him in Honduras in 2021, surrounded by convoy vehicles, a blur of motion and control. The FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list in 2021, and since then, not a trace. A man who turned invisibility into survival. 4. Arnoldo Jimenez. It was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. On May 12, 2012, Arnoldo Jimenez married Estrella Carrera in Chicago. Friends said they laughed, danced, celebrated, but the next morning, Estrella was found dead in her bathtub, still wearing her silver wedding dress. Police say Arnoldo never came home, By the time they searched his apartment, he was gone, his black Maserati speeding south toward Mexico. The FBI believes he hides in the state of Durango, supported by family, living quietly under another name. More than a decade later, the photographs of their wedding have become part of his wanted poster, a love story that ended before it began, and a man who's been running ever since. 5. Octaviano Juarez Coro, a father once, a fugitive now. Octaviano Juarez Coro is wanted for a 2006 double homicide in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, after a confrontation with his estranged wife's family. 2 men lost their lives that night. Police say he fled immediately, crossing into Mexico within hours. He's been gone ever since. He was 33 then, nearly 50 now. Last reported in the Mexican state of Jalisco, where whispers of his presence still surface now and then, never confirmed, never denied. Some fugitives vanish into remote mountains. Others vanish into the patterns of ordinary living. Either way, the trail always ends in silence. From the mountains of Colombia to the coastal air of Venezuela, Wilver Villegas Palomino has lived most of his life in motion. The FBI and DEA describe him as a senior member of the National Liberation Army, a guerrilla group tied to trafficking operations across South America. He's wanted for leading shipments of cocaine that flowed through jungles and ports toward Central America and the United States. Investigators believe he's remained in Colombia, protected by the very organization he helped build, a world where loyalty and secrecy mean survival. When photographs surface, they're years apart, as if time itself is helping him disappear. Somewhere in those mountains, a man in his 50s moves beneath a gray sky, his name carried by radio chatter and rumor. 7. Jason Derek Brown. He doesn't fit the image of a fugitive. Jason Derek Brown, fluent, educated, a former missionary, and for years a man of charm and appearance. In November 2004, Phoenix police say he ambushed an armored car guard outside a theater, stole the money, and vanished into the desert night. Security cameras caught a grainy figure on a bicycle. A few days later, Brown's car was found abandoned near the airport. Since then, he's been seen everywhere and nowhere. Utah, California, even rumors of overseas travel. He speaks French, loves expensive toys, and blends easily into crowds. He's been on the list for nearly 2 decades, one of the longest tenures of any fugitive alive. The man who smiled his way into disappearance. 8. Ruja Ignatova. They called her the Crypto Queen. Ruja Ignatova, a Bulgarian-German businesswoman, built a global empire called OneCoin, promising to revolutionize currency. It was, investigators say, one of the largest financial frauds in history. Billions of dollars taken from investors across more than 100 countries. She was last seen boarding a plane from Sofia to Athens in October 2017. Then, nothing. No confirmed sightings, no trace in global banking systems. Some believe she changed her appearance and lives quietly in Europe. Others think she never survived her escape. Her name sits on the FBI list like a ghost written in code. A modern mystery made of numbers, secrecy, and silence. 9. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano, new to the list, added in 2025. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano is accused of leading a violent transnational network operating across Central and South America. Investigators connect him to kidnappings and narcotics trafficking, and to the kind of quiet power that moves between countries unnoticed. He was last seen in Colombia, his movements masked by multiple passports and a chain of false names. Each photograph on his wanted page looks different. Beard, no beard, glasses, no glasses, a study in transformation. His reward, up to $1 million. His location, unknown. His legend, growing quietly beneath the surface of the Americas. 10. Ryan James, wedding. A name that once belonged to an athlete. an Olympian windsurfer representing Canada in 2004. Ryan James' wedding was later accused in a 2020s narcotics conspiracy spanning California and British Columbia. When charges came, he vanished, trading podiums and cameras for aliases and shadows. The FBI added him to the list in March 2025, believing he fled north through the Pacific coast, moving between marinas and border towns. An athlete's discipline turned toward evasion. A man once celebrated for speed, now remembered for how quickly he disappeared. 10 names, 10 stories without endings. Some hide in cities, some in mountains, some in memory itself. And the list remains, changing faces, same silence. Every list tells a story, but this one, the FBI's 10 most wanted, is not a story of guilt or violence. It is a story of searching, of how entire nations can keep looking for faces that may never appear again. Each year, the photographs change, but the feeling does not. Behind every wanted poster is a web of families, investigators, victims, and questions left suspended in time. The list is, in some way, a monument, not to notoriety, but to unfinished work. When the FBI created it in 1950, the idea was simple: put the faces where the public could see them, and maybe, just maybe, someone would recognize one. Decades later, that idea still breathes. Over 490 fugitives have appeared. More than 160 were captured with help from people who simply looked a little longer. And yet, others remain. Caro Quintero in the mountains, Ignatova in the silence of vanished data, Brown somewhere between desert and daylight. 10 stories at the edge of sight, reminding us that disappearance is not magic. It's persistence, distance, and time intertwined. For those who listen to Midnight Evidence, these stories are not meant to haunt. They are meant to slow the world down, to show how thin the line is between known and unknown, between justice and memory. So, as the rain falls softly outside your window tonight, remember that someone, somewhere, still watches the horizon for a familiar face. Somewhere, an agent checks a file again, a family keeps a candle in the window, and the list waits for one more name to be crossed out. Take a slow breath, detective. Let the quiet settle. The night will keep the watch. You've walked through 10 stories, and each one is a question still echoing in the dark. You've been listening to Midnight Evidence, true crime told softly, for those who wander, and for those who dream. Sleep well, detective. The case will keep until morning.